Title: The Silent Ember, a cat's stoic redemption. I was 36 when Lily carved my heart out and left me bleeding in the rain-soaked husk of our little flat, perched on the edge of a decaying coastal town where the sea gnashed its teeth against the cliffs. The wind howled through the cracked windows, a mourner's dirge as I stood there, soaked to the bone, staring at the wreckage she'd left behind. Ember, my wiry black cat with eyes like smoldering coals, sat on the splintered sill, his fur glistening with drizzle, his gaze steady as the storm raged around us. Her voice still clawed at me, sharp and venomous from that gray afternoon. "You're a ghost, James. I found someone alive." She'd strutted in with him, Victor, a slick-haired lawyer with a Rolex that flashed like a taunt. Right into the home, I'd poured my soul into the one I'd built from sweat-stained cannery shifts and whispered promises under flickering bulbs. She'd smirked as she stuffed a bag with her things, dropping a crumpled letter that confessed she'd siphon our savings. Every penny I'd scraped together for his new venture. Then she'd walked out, his arms snaked around her waist, her laugh echoing like a gunshot as the door slammed shut. I didn't chase her, not because the fire to drag her back didn't burn in my chest, hot enough to melt steel, but because my knees buckled, dropping me onto the warped floorboards where I'd once cradled her through shivering nights. 5 years I'd given her, every dime from my calloused hands, every quiet evening I'd spent mending her clothes while she worked late, every lie I'd choked down because I loved her more than the air in my lungs. I'd found her 7 years ago, a skeletal figure shivering on the pier, a runaway with hollow eyes and no one to claim her. I carried her home, fed her scraps from my plate, sold my dad's old watch, the last piece of him I had, to pay her hospital bills when pneumonia sank its claws in her chest. I'd sat by her bed for 3 days straight, no sleep, whispering she'd make it, promising her a life. Now, she'd torched it all, leaving me with a half-dead fern, a stack of unpaid bills, and the ghost of her scent on the pillow I'd clutched too long. Ember leapt down, his wet nose brushing my trembling hand, his ember eyes locking onto mine. Not pitying, not fleeing, just present. That's when a jagged shard of clarity sliced through my haze. What if I don't drown in this? What if I rise, not for her, but for the man I buried to save her? Ember's quiet fire lit something in me, and I chose redemption over ruin. Stoic wisdom, gleaned from a tattered book I'd scavenged from a thrift bin years ago, would be my forge, and Ember my silent ember, guiding me through the dark. Her betrayal didn't kill me. It woke me from a sleep I'd mistaken for living. Lily thought I'd shatter, that I'd sink into the bottle like I did when my mom died at 20, leaving me an orphan with nothing but a rusty trailer and a fistful of regrets. She knew I'd been fragile. Nights I'd sobbed in her hair after 16-hour shifts, days I'd stitched my own cuts with fishing line because I couldn't afford a doctor, all to keep her warm. The weak break, the strong endure. I told myself, Ember my proof. When a stray mutt tore in his leg years back, he didn't cry, just limped to me, waited while I fumbled with needle and thread, and stood again, scars like medals. I won't crumble, I vowed, Marcus Aurelius's words a lifeline in the storm. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. I didn't call her, didn't smash the walls until my knuckles bled. I grabbed my boots, still sodden from the rain, and ran through the downpour, the cold biting my skin, the sea's roar swallowing the sobs I wouldn't let out. She texted that night, "You'll be fine, right?" And I replied, steady as granite, always was. No begging, no fury, just a quiet truth. She'll feel the silence I don't break. I knew, her mind already twisting. Why isn't he lost without me? I didn't flee her blade. I faced it, and that was the first ember of my rebirth. She didn't take my life. She handed me one to forge anew. I'd squandered too much of my past. Teen years numbed by grief after mom's cancer ate her away. 20s hauling fish guts in a cannery that stank of despair. 30s bending until I broke for Lily's dreams while mine rusted in a drawer. She thought I'd stay that shadow, a hollowed-out man clutching her memory like a lifeline. Ember, show me another way. When I forgot his food once, back when we barely had scraps, he didn't beg, just hunted a rat in the alley, dropped it at my feet like a gift, his eyes saying, I survive, and so can you. On my own fire, I swore, turning her abandonment into molten steel. I ran every dawn, from the pier where I'd found her to the cliffs where gulls screamed, my body, once frail from sleepless nights, hardening with every pounding step. I wrote, not pathetic pleas to her, but stories of a boy who'd lost his world and clawed it back, pages stacking in the flat's damp corner beside Ember's perch. Pain is my teacher, I thought, Seneca's voice a balm against the ache. What need is there to weep over parts of life when all of it calls for strength? I didn't curse her name or cling to her shadow. I stood in the ashes and forged a man I'd forgotten I could be, one I owed to the kid who'd once dreamed beyond the cannery's walls. I didn't vanish from her sight. I glowed, a light she couldn't dim or deny. Lily figured I'd fade into the gray, a wraith in her rear view, erased like the flat's peeling paint or the promises we'd scratched into its beams. Certainty blinds, resilience blindsides. I learned Ember my compass. When I moved his bowl once, testing him, he didn't fuss, just claimed the sill with a flick of his tail, king of his own ruin. I'm the dawn she didn't see coming. I told myself, staying visible in ways she couldn't ignore, posting shots of me running at sunrise, salt crusting my skin, grinning with cannery mates over mugs of bitter coffee that steamed in the cold. She messaged, you look okay, and I answered, soft but unyielding, better than okay. She'll question the throne she abandoned. I felt psychology's quiet hum in my bones. People ache for what shifts beyond their grasp. I didn't hide in the dark or howl into the void. I rose in her world, a silent ember she couldn't snuff out, a glow that made her squint. I didn't retreat into myself. I spread outward, and that warmth touched souls she'd never reach. They're drawn to light in the dark. I saw Ember my lesson. When he'd limped through the flat after a scuffle, blood on his fur, strays gathered outside, lured by his quiet fire despite his wounds. I'm a beacon, I promised, stepping beyond my shell, befriending old dockhands with hands like cracked leather, men who'd lost sons to the sea, sharing tea with Mrs. Hahn, the widow downstairs who'd buried her husband and her hope years ago. One evening, I sat with her, ember curled between us, and she pressed a trembling hand to mine, whispering, you're the son I didn't lose. A photo hit online, me, laughing, feeding ember scraps as a gaggle of peer kids watched, their eyes wide with wonder, one tugging my sleeve to ask, can you teach me to fish like you? She commented, nice. I'll let it drift unanswered. She'll see I'm not hers to lose, I thought, social proof a soft echo. If they need him, what did I cast aside? I didn't shrink into bitterness or sulk in solitude. My glow lit lives, and her coldness flickered in its shadow. I didn't cut her off, I stilled, and that silence carved her deeper than any scream. Noise is frail, calm as iron. I realized, ember my mirror, when thunder rattled the flat, shaking the walls, he'd sit on the sill, ember eyes steady, a rock unshaken by the gale. I'm unshaken, I vowed her, how are you? Met with a simple good, short, solid, my rhythm mine alone. She'd counted on me raging like I had in my youth, punching walls after mom's funeral, shouting at foremen who docked my pay, or vanishing into the bottle's haze. I gave her neither, my voice a quiet tide, my heart tethered to something beyond her. She'll feel invisible, I knew, her mind reeling. Why doesn't he need me anymore? I've been a tempest once, grief's wild son, love's desperate fool, but not now. I didn't dodge her barbs or beg for her gaze. My stillness was a blade, cutting through the pride she'd worn like armor. I didn't run from her. I stood firm, and that rarity pulled her back like a tide. They chase what's rare. I learned, ember my sign. When I'd leave for the cannery, he'd roam the alleys, leaving me to find his warmth curled by the door at dusk. I'm the ember she can't hold. I told myself, her I miss us met with, do you? Gentle, then gone, my pace a whisper on the wind. Loss stirs the heart. I understood, her fear of fading gnawing at her like salt in a wound. Does he see me, or has he moved beyond? I didn't flee her echo or plead for her return. My quiet fire drew her, a man she'd lost to her own hands, a light she'd dimmed but couldn't kill. I didn't turn away from her. I walked forward, and that departure was my gift to us both. Kings don't cling. They rise. I saw, Ember my truth. When night fell, he'd hunt through the dark, free and fierce. Returning with a mouse, he'd lay at my feet like tribute. On my own redemption, I declared her, can we talk? Answered with maybe someday, kind, final, my worth a shield forged from years of giving. She'll feel the weight I lift, I knew, Epictetus' calm grounding me like an anchor. Freedom is letting go of what you can't control. I'd held too tight before, Mom's memory until it choked me, jobs that ground me to dust, Lily's love until it bled me dry. But not here. I didn't linger in her wake or lash out in spite. My steps were a mercy, leaving her space to heal while I built something new. I didn't fight her. I built, and that creation became my silent hymn, a song for more than just me. Triumph is quiet. I saw, Ember my guide. After a stray stole his spot by the heater, he reclaimed it days later, claws soft but sure, his presence enough. My light endures, I vowed. My body strong from runs that left my lungs raw. My stories sold to a local press that called them haunting. My flat a haven where Ember reigned. One afternoon, I taught the pier kids to fish, skinny little things with no dads, their moms too tired to care. Showing them how to bait a hook, Ember weaving between their legs as they giggled. One boy, Tommy, all of 8, clung to me after, sobbing, don't leave like Pa did. I hugged him, promising, I'm here, kid. She saw it online. Me steady, a makeshift rod in hand, Ember at my side, and her silence wept louder than words. What did I break that he rebuilt? I didn't prove my worth or punish her choice. My rise was her mirror, reflecting a love she'd lost, a man who'd found more in giving than she'd ever taken. I didn't reclaim her. I transcended her, and that solitude became my ember's glow, a light for others too. She'll never replace me. I knew, Ember my soul. No cat matched his cold bright gaze. No creature carried his quiet scars with such grace. I'm whole, I swore. My purpose, runs that cleared my mind, words that lifted readers, a life woven into the town's fabric, my core. Kings don't need crowns, I thought. Her, I was wrong. A breeze I didn't chase, a plea I didn't need to hear. I've been a shell once. Mom's grieving boy, the cannery's weary drone, Lily's sacrificial lamb. But not now. I didn't grasp for her return or mourn what she'd stolen. My fire was mine, a redemption she'd never touch, a warmth I shared with Tommy, Mrs. Hahn, the kids who now called me Fishman with grins. 2 years later, Ember sits by the window, cold eyes tracing the dawn as gulls cry overhead, while I write by the sea's sigh, my flat a sanctuary stitched with new memories. Lily's calls, James, please, I need you, fade unanswered into the ether, her regret a shadow I've long outgrown. The cannery gave me a raise. My tales lift strangers who write me letters. Your words saved me, one said, and the pier kids trail me like ducklings, Ember their mascot. Last week, I found her letter in the mailbox, ink smudged with tears. I saw you with those kids. I threw away a man I didn't deserve. Forgive me. I read it, felt the old ache flare, then folded it away. Ember nudged my hand, purring, and I let it go. She stole my soul. I gave her my ashes and became her salvation. Strength wasn't in winning her back. It was in me, enduring, radiant, a man she'll never reach, a light for those she left behind. I am my own Ember. I whisper, my redemption a glow eternal, burning not just for me, but for every broken soul I've pulled from the dark.